The buyback team, tax liens versus tax deeds. Property tax lien versus tax deed. A tax lien is very different from a tax deed. The process of acquiring them may be similar, but they are two different legal binding documents. Tax lien. If the tax lien is not paid for the year, then the lien will be placed on the property. Invisible lien that is on the house until it is paid. This type of lien precedes all other liens, include mortgages, home equity loans, or home equity liens of creditors. The TLC holder then have the ability to foreclose on the property. Not every state uses tax lien certificate. Some use tax deeds. As we mentioned, there's about 30 states that uses tax liens versus tax deed. Below you will see the link of what state uses which instrument for investors. Tax liens. On the contrary, the county handles redemption period themselves versus a tax lien. The investor has to do the foreclosure process for them. The tax deed, the redemption date is from due date to the time of sale. The county will foreclose the property for the investor. This is a result in the investor getting the property every time, be at the bargaining price, such as the tax lien, but they will definitely receive the property. So let's highlight the difference here between a tax lien and a tax deed is that a tax lien puts a actual lien on the house, but that does not guarantee that you will receive the property. If you are interested in receiving property, you will opt to go through the tax deed process. With the tax deed process, you obtain the property every single time, just for a higher rate versus the tax lien. So what's the difference between a tax lien and a tax deed? The tax lien allows you, the holder, to collect interest and gives you the possibility of property ownership, versus the tax deed process simply gives you ownership of the property. A little closer look into tax liens. The needs to know. Must know the auction process and or over-the-counter sale process for each county. Must know the state and county codes and policy regarding redemption and legal foreclosure process. Understanding the estimated return time for the tax lien. The next important thing to know is purchase price versus investment. Knowing the interest rate in the redemption period. Consider all foreclosure considerations. That includes taxes, insurance, and fixer-uppers. Consider being a homeowner and all that comes with to invest in a tax lien. There's a possibility you may not receive the property, but you receive your interest and penalties every time. A little closer look at tax deeds, the need to know. A tax deed is a legal document that grants ownership of the property to the government body when the property owner does not pay the taxes due on the property. A tax deed gives the government the authority to sell the property to collect the delinquent taxes and transfer the property to the purchaser. Such sales are called tax deed sales and are usually held at an auction. A tax deed legally transfers ownerships to the buyer of the property that has been sold due to delinquent taxes. In order to acquire a tax deed, the tax authority, often a county government, must go through the series of legal steps, including notifying the property owner, applying for tax deed, posting on a notice on the property, and posting a public notice. The exact steps that must be taken will vary according with local and municipal laws. Tax deeds. In a tax deed sale, the property itself is sold. The sale, which occurs through an auction, has a minimum bid of amount of back tax owed plus interest, as well as costs associated with selling the property. The highest bidder takes the title of the property but has only 42 to 72 hours to pay the entire amount owed, or else the sale is invalidated. So that's the difference, and that's why I explained to you guys that the tax deed process versus the tax lien process, you have to be more aggressive, as well as make sure that you have your financial situation together to acquire that property within 48 to 72 hours. What state sells county tax liens? You'll find the link below, but we'll go over a few in this presentation. You can see Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, and many others sells tax county liens, in which you will be a lien holder with the possibility of ownership. But you will always, every time, receive your penalties and your interest for helping the municipality. Please know that the District of Columbia in Puerto Rico is also under the domicile of the United States, in which allows you as an investor to invest in properties in those regions. States that sells tax certificate continues. You'll find this link at the bottom of this video. Welcome to the buyback team, Class 3. The tax liens versus deeds. In this class, you will learn the difference between a tax lien versus a deed. Property tax liens versus deed. We're going to go over the concept of a tax lien first. Tax liens. If the tax lien is not paid for the year, then a lien will be placed on the property. A tax lien is an invisible lien that is on the house until it's paid. This type of lien precedes all other liens, including mortgage, home equity liens of credits, lines of credits. The TLC holder then have the ability to foreclose on the property. Not every state uses tax lien certificates. Some uses tax deeds. Tax deeds. The county handles redemption periods themselves when you're dealing with tax deeds. The redemption date is from the due date to the time of sale. The county will foreclose on the property for the deed holder in most states. This is something that has to be checked state by state. Most states do the foreclosure process when it comes to deeds. The county will foreclose the property. This is a result in the investor getting the property every time. May not be at the bargaining price, such as the tax lien, still have the ability, high rate, but they still have a high rate for a high return, because you'll be making way less of an investment when it comes to a tax deed. For instance, if a home is $125,000, the tax deed may only be for $25,000, and there you will walk away automatically with the home with the total payment of the $25,000. Prices of the deed is much lower than a short selling property. So let's keep that in mind. So that's one of the key difference between a tax lien and a tax deed. With the tax lien, you will leave with the certificate in the hopes that the homeowner pays the tax lien and you are able to redeem either you are able to redeem the penalties as well as the late fees. In the case that the property owner do not pay the tax lien, this is when you as the investor can go about the process of foreclosing on the tax certificate. So the difference, tax deed. As soon as you pay for the tax lien, the property is already foreclosed. So what's the difference between a tax lien and a tax deed? Continue. The tax lien allows you, the holder, to collect interest, gives you the deed process, simply gives you ownership of the property. Just to clarify. A little closer look into tax liens, the needs to know. Must know the auction process and or the over-the-counter sale process for each county, As we move on in the modules, we'll be going over the auction process versus the over-the-counter sale process. You must know the state and county codes and policies regarding redemption and legal foreclosure process. And later on in the program, you will have guided information to allow you to be able to search any county in the United States that's able to allow you to access through online modules. This will be shown to you later on in the program. Understanding the estimate return for the tax lien. Always have a realistic idea of what you're going to receive back for the tax lien. Understanding that you may not redeem the property, but you may just receive the tax penalties on the lien as well as the interest that is due to the investor. Please be aware that each county process their interest differently, so you must know the difference between compound interest as well as the difference between simple interest. We will go over that later on in the modules. Purchase prices versus investment. You always have to know what you may receive back. For example, if you invest $25,000, as mentioned before, and the purchase price of the home is $125,000, you will be able to receive up to $100,000 profit, depending on how much you sell the property for or what you choose to do with the property. Know the interest rate in the redemption period, as I mentioned to you, because every county calculates their redemption interest different. So know if it's compound or simple interest. And this will allow you to understand your redemption amount when you receive your check. Consider all foreclosure considerations. When you're looking for a home, we're going to go over the process of how you look for homes and tax liens and properties, but you also should do your due diligence and look into the county's rules and regulations when it comes to foreclosure considerations and time period. This will allow you to have a better understanding of the redemption process pertaining to your specific investment, as well as the expected time that you will receive your interest and or the property. Consider being a homeowner and all that comes with it. Now, with tax liens versus a tax deed, you have a possibility, as we mentioned several times, to receive the interest and the penalties. But if that interest and penalties is not paid by the homeowner, then you have the right to foreclose on that home. So consider being a homeowner. Keep that in mind. There's other spending that comes with being a homeowner. For example, insurance is something that comes with every homeowner once you become a homeowner. So please take the time to understand what you may end up, because you may end up with a home, and that's a good thing. A little closer look at tax deeds, the need to know. Now let's focus a little more on the tax deeds. A tax deed is a legal document that grants ownership of the property to a government body when the property owner does not pay the taxes due on the property. A tax deed gives the government the authority to sell the property, to collect the delinquent taxes, and transfer the property to the purchaser, such as you, who will be the investor. Such sales are called tax deed sales and are usually held at auctions. We will talk about the auction process later on in the modules. A tax deed legally transforms ownership to the buyer of the property that has been sold due to delinquent taxes. In order to acquire a tax deed, the tax authority, often county government, must go through a series of legal steps, including notifying the property owner, applying the tax deed posting, a notice to the property, and posting a public notice. The exact step that must be taken will vary in accordance to with local and municipality laws. So as I told you, you have to do your due diligence because every county has their own rules. Tax deeds continue. In a tax deed sale, the property itself is sold. The sale, which occurs through an auction, has a minimum bid of the amount of back taxes owed plus interest, as well as costs associated with selling the property. The highest bidder takes the title of the property, but has only 42 to 72 hours to pay the entire amount owed, or else the sale is invalid. So when you're dealing with tax deed, there's two things you need to be aware of: that you will be attending an auction, and an auction process is very different from the over-the-counter sale. It is more aggressive, and you have to be more aware of what's going on when it comes to the property and do your research faster versus the over-the-counter sale, where you can be more passive, and we'll go over that later on. What state sells county tax liens? You'll find the document located below, but we'll go over a few. Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, as mentioned before, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. Please see the attached document below for a full description of states that sell tax liens and a full description of states that sell tax deeds. I want to thank you for attending class number 3. We have gotten through it, and I know that you have learned a lot about tax liens versus the tax deed. Welcome to the buyback team. The need to know when investing in property tax liens, class 3. Which state sells tax liens? As mentioned in the prior class, we have a list of states that you need to be aware of that sells tax liens. This will be very important for the investor that is just interested in purchasing tax lien certificates, as well as very important for the person who wants to purchase tax deeds. The steps in the tax lien process. Property owner fails to pay the taxes. A tax lien is a legal claim on the property for failure to pay, as we mentioned. It gives the tax authority first rights on your property over other creditors. The lien differs from a levy, because we need to know the difference between the lien and the levy, because these are the terminologies that we'll be using a lot. A lien differs from a levy in that the government doesn't seize your home or other property. Keep in mind that the lien can become a levy at some point if you never pay the tax or never make arrangements to satisfy the debt. The tax authority decides when to impose the levy. You'll receive written notice of the levy at least 30 days before it takes place. A lien can negatively affect your credit. Unpaid tax liens can remain on a credit report indefinitely, where a paid tax lien can remain for up to 7 years from the date filed. So be aware, guys. If you know your family members and they're in that situation, you can educate them. Tax lien auctions versus tax deeds. Okay, so what is a tax lien auction? The method for selling properties varies across the county. Many small counties uses live auctions, which may be held at the county courthouse or in the local venue. However, municipalities are moving to online auctions formats because it is more efficient. So, this is where you have two different forms of research that you can do, because some counties are not actually on the internet because their counties are pretty small. So if you know of a little town that may have a property that you're interested in for whatever reason, because we're going to go over that, then you have to go to that local municipality and ask them for their auction information. You can call and ask them when do they hold their live auctions, and or do they have over-the-counter sales, which is basically residual homes and properties that has been left over from other auctions. Okay, and this is when I say over-the-counter sales are more passive than actually auctions. So when you go to the auction, the best thing to do is always be prepared. However, the municipalities are moving to online auction formats because it's more effective. One of the states that are very advanced in tax lien and tax deeds are Florida. Florida has many modules online. Types of tax lien auctions. They can be live or online. This is how advanced tax lien process is becoming, because it's becoming so popular. So right now, while a lot of people don't know about it, it's best for you to learn as much as possible. You take your time and you can get your foot in the door fast. So let's see, what's the difference between a live auction and an online auction. Live auction. Throughout the county, many municipalities and counties still use traditional live on-site auction process to sell both tax liens and tax deeds. Generally, they are similar. Generally, they are smaller communities, often more rural ones, which either do not have the capability to use online auction platform or do not have enough tax defaults to warrant that approach. Contact municipality or county treasurer office for information on auctions. So I want you to highlight, you contact the county municipality or county treasury office, which is also known as the tax assessor's office in different counties. And that's what I want to share with you. These lingo is interchangeable. You'll be able to find a document that will be able to help you in regards to definitions of different words different counties may use. We will also go into communication with the municipalities, because everyone speaks different lingo, so you have to have a certain approach. Moving on. Online auctions. Officials in most large markets have turned to various online auction companies to handle their tax default properties, whether they are selling tax liens or tax deeds. Some of the major platforms, and I have a list of them for you, and we're going to go into these major platforms and we're going to review them together in another video. Grant Street Group, Real Auction, as well as Zia's Auction, Bid for Assist. Those 4 platforms we will be going through, and you can find that in the link below. Hybrid sales. Some states, such as Florida, and this is one of the advanced investors, what happens is that investors are allowed to purchase the tax lien and hold it until either the property owner makes good on his or her debt or it goes into tax foreclosure. Up until the point, investors earn interest and penalty, just like in the tax lien situation. However, unlike most tax lien states, hybrid states don't allow the tax lien holder to foreclose. If the property goes into complex tax foreclosure, the defaulted property then goes to the tax deed sale in which the bidder can compete to purchase the property. So, I need you to understand the difference with the hybrid sale, because Florida is fancy pants. It's fancy pants because they have so many foreclosures and so many different vendors as well And investors, this is why they're able to do this process. So what will happen is that you will be able to buy the tax lien, but if the homeowner does not pay when it's time for redemption time, what's Florida redemption time, then that same tax lien will go on to the market as a tax deed. Then you will have the right to compete to receive that tax deed. And the reason why it makes sense for them to do that, because as mentioned to you before, the tax deed goes for a much higher rate than just a tax lien. So they're not going to, Florida wants to make their money. Let's be straight. So Florida's not going to just let all their tax liens turn straight into redemption for investors. They have to actually put a little bit more into the pot. Okay? Tax deed auctions versus tax deed sales. Tax deed auctions, there's a difference. Tax deed auction also may be held live and or on site or through various online auction platforms. Bidding normally starts with the amount of the back taxes, accumulated interest, and any penalties already levied. The deed auction tends to follow a fairly traditional real estate auction format, with bidders competing with each other on the price, with the highest bidder winning the property. The difference between this, now let's go on to the tax deed sale. Winning the tax deed sale does not mean you necessarily win the property. Most states have what is called a period of redemption, in which property owners can make good on what they owe. You'll lose the property if that happens, but you'll gain a return on your investment in the form of interest and penalties. So you have to be aware, some states still allow their homeowner a little bit of time to redeem their tax deed. I think it's a very short redemption period, but within that time, you as a tax investor do not have to worry, because they will do the foreclosure process when it comes down to it. So that's the difference. So they hold it a little while longer, and then they would do the foreclosure process for you. Okay? Tax deed auctions versus tax deed sales continue. Tax deed sales. Some states bypass the deed auction process entirely and simply offers the tax default property for sale directly to the buyer. Most of these, see, this is the other type of options that you have. So you have to go to that specific municipality to figure out how they function. Each state is like their own island. Okay? And each county is like their own island. Most of these are offered at the local municipality or county level, usually through the treasurer's office / tax assessor. Okay, that's another name. Some jurisdictions engage law offices to handle the sale. It takes research at the local level to uncover this. So, for instance, I bought tax liens in Queen Anne County in Maryland, and they have a private lawyer that deals with their tax liens. So it's not actually just a county, it's not a Pacific County lawyer for the county. They are contracting through lawyers around the area. Unlike that situation with auction, the price sets tend to be fairly close to market value. So while you can get a below the market property, it won't likely be a penny on the dollar deal. So like I mentioned before, you have to be aware when you go into wanting to do the tax deeds, you have to have a little bit more change on deck. So if you have a home that you're interested in and you have a $25,000 balance, expect that you may use that to redeem your property. But if you're looking for tax lien, you have $25,000, you can buy a buttload of tax liens and have you ready throughout the year receiving penalties and interest. So it's just two different ways that you can approach this. Do not stop the process, but redemption process and the property owner. Owner can pay the tax liens and fee, pay it in full and stop the process. dispute the filing, which will delay the process. Set up initial plans with the county, so they can set up some type of payment plan with the county if the county wants to, and delay the process. Quick sell on the property, but most counties are aware of that. So once it's in, you have a levy on the home, they're not going to allow you to do a quick sell on the property. So that's not too much you have to worry about, but you just have to keep that in mind. Refinance the property. Now, they may refinance it, really fast, but that can't happen when you're back on taxes at the end of the day. So if, for instance, if they're able to refinance before the paperwork goes through or the levy, then this is when they will possibly stop your process and be able to pay their actual fees and penalties. And this is something that you can talk to your friends and family about who may be losing their properties, because it's two sides to this. We don't want to be vultures. We want to be able to